We are live with the Short Term Rental Pros podcast. And today I'm here with my guy, Brian, who I needed to reach out to because his business incorporates two of my favorite things. One of those being hospitalities, short term rentals, and the second being boats. I do boat rentals, but you don't sleep on the boat. You go on it for the day and you bring it back, or maybe you're staying at a Airbnb you sleep at overnight. Brian, his company is. We were joking about this before you hopped on. I was like, is it a boathouse or a houseboat or what are they called? He corrected me, and I'm gonna let him explain what it is because it is one of the most unique short-term rental models that I think I've seen to this point. So super excited to get into your story, and thank you so much for coming today, Brian.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've kind of been in stealth mode the last year or so, but now that we're have our first fleet and this is our first like full booking season, we've been gaining a lot of traction and a lot of attention. So I felt like it was a good time to kind of come out and kind of tell everyone what we're up to.
Deservingly so, and everybody you listening today, y'all are hearing it first. Because Brian, he's been building, he hasn't been talking. So, Brian, fill us in, man. How did you get into floating hotels?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a really awesome story because it's all like interconnected in just my personal life. I grew up in the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Grew up on the river wakeboarding, and then as soon as I got my driver's license, started heading to the beach surfing, and then was really fortunate to be able to go to college at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, which was an amazing experience just in so many ways. But while I was out there, after the fourth year, I wasn't really burnt out from surfing, but was interested in doing something new. And in Hawaii, outrigger canoe paddling is like the state sport, similar to how we treat football and in the major sports here in the U.S. And I just walked down to the local canoe club and just joined. And the first session I got in the canoe, I was hooked to what turned into a life of paddling, which I still do today. Long story short, from a personal journey, I was adopted as a newborn and actually reached out and found my birth parents after I graduated college, which inspired me to leave Hawaii, which a lot of people ask, why would you ever leave Hawaii? That's the reason. And move to Annapolis, Maryland, which moved here in 2012. And when I was here, I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do in life, meeting my new families. And then I got the entrepreneurship bug. At the time, I started paddling competitively in stand-up paddleboarding and started racing around the country. Did some international races, and then was like, man, it'd be really cool to kind of start my own business. Had no idea how to start a business. It was basically like Googling how to write a business plan. But a lot of things came together. There's a historic marina in downtown Annapolis that a guy had just bought and wanted to redevelop it. So he thought it was a good idea of me coming on board and kind of opening up this little paddle business because he wanted some more activity in the marina. Little did he know what he was in for. But it was myself and two of my friends, and we took 100-year-old building and created a thriving paddle community. The company is called Capital Sup. And what we really did and how it relates to FLOHOM is that in Annapolis, really the only way to get on the water was if you owned a boat or took one of the boat tours. So it was really a small demographic of people. And what we did is, for less than $30, you could paddle around downtown Annapolis and see the historic city the best way you can, which is on the water. And so we blew the company up. A lot of our business was just purely rentals, but we were nationally known for all the crazy experiences that we did. Floating, stand up paddleboard yoga, LED night tours, yappy hours where kids would bring their dogs out. I mean, any creative idea, like we would do it. And so really that really inspired me to be like, man, I could, build a business, career around, building business around the water. From Capital Sup, I then started a nonprofit called Live Water Foundation. I've always been really focused on giving back, and so we created Live Water to create paddle programs for local veterans, underserved youth, and clean water activation. And through that process, and I ended up selling Capital Sup to my partners. It was a seasonal business. It was three of us. We started as friends. I always call that experience go and get my MBA because I left that with just ultimate confidence and be like, man, I can really do anything if I put my mind to it. And we were really fortunate enough to be living at the marina as well with me and my now wife and my partners. We kind of had our own little reality TV show at the house. But we ended up having to move, and I was like, man, like I really want to still live on or near the water. Have been able to my whole life, and I just couldn't. We couldn't afford a place in Annapolis, and so my wife was really into floating home. I mean, I'm sorry, tiny homes. I was really into water, and so I was paddling one day and found this houseboat in downtown Annapolis on Back Creek. I was like, "Oh, that looks kind of cool." And so I just paddled up and I was like, oh, "I'm going to go knock on the door and see who lives there." And ended up doing that. And it was a pretty old houseboat from the outside, but when I walked inside, they had redesigned it and rebuilt it to look like a home. And it really just when I walked in and saw the living room with the floor to ceiling windows and the dining table and the modern kitchen, just a light bulb went off in my head and I was like, "Wow, I could really live like this." And I actually was really inspired to be like, "Hey, I actually want to see if I could buy this boat." And convinced the owners to try to sell it to me. And through that, I went through a personal journey of learning about the limitations when it comes to houseboats and how it's hard to actually buy them because financing and all the rest. And so I ended up not purchasing the houseboat. But the idea always stuck with me. Fast forward 2 years later, 3 years later, COVID hits, I'm just sitting around like everyone else, just figuring out what the heck's going on, like what are we doing in our lives, and just kind of really just spent a lot of time thinking about really what do I want to do in life, and um, there was actually a houseboat in Annapolis that was on Airbnb that was being rented out, and when I say houseboat, it is a registered houseboat, but it looks more like a floating home because there's some differences in this type of houseboats. But I was watching on Airbnb and it was getting $500 a night, and it really wasn't designed that well. Like it didn't really have any amenities. It had like didn't even have a rooftop, and I was like, this is kind of crazy. Like, but it's like they're getting $500 a night and they're pretty much booked out. So that's when I was like, man, there's something here. And then I started scraping Airbnb and looking at all the other houseboats. And granted, this is during COVID, so everything was inflated, but still, they were getting great ADRs. Like they're pretty much fully booked out. So, one day my wife and I were just talking and just got inspired. You're like, you know what? Like, there's something here. Like, let's think of a name. And we were just spitballing names, and we came up with FLOHOM, and was looking the domains to see what was available. And FLOHOM without FLOHOM FLOHOME was taken, so I dropped the E, and then that's how it made FLOHOM. But at that point, it was just an idea. It was still like a long way to go to get it to where it is today. And I knew that because this was so new and really doesn't exist as far as creating a brand behind it, that I needed experienced partners to help me raise capital and really kind of take this idea and make it a real business. And so through the journey, I was able to meet two very experienced, successful entrepreneurs that have scaled large companies and exited. And so, really grateful that they were like, "Man, this is an amazing idea. I'd love to join with you and help you build this and help do all the things that is required to make it into a company." And so, here we are today with five flow homes open. Number six is getting ready, and we have two more being built. And we'll talk about it, but I mean, we have a very high vision on in where we want to take this.
And I love that light bulb moment. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. Geez, I'm so curious about so many things here. But I just love how you had that light bulb moment of I was just on Airbnb and I saw this unique property that was just doing obscenely well. And they weren't even, professionals. They didn't have the best photos. They didn't have the best design. And I said, I think I can do this and I can do this better. And then you acted on it, because I think a lot of people, they want to look for like exact, like, XYZ software is going to tell me, something's going to do ABC. Like, nah, like you just find an example online of a house that's doing really damn well and you unpack it. And that's just what you did. So also, I'm going to take a step back. Professional paddleboarding. What the heck is that? I know paddleboarding, but like you literally racing, like who can
Yeah,
go
it was.
faster, longer.
It's kind of funny because at the time it was like the fastest growing water sport in the world just because it was so accessible. And right when I really started paddling is really when the professional scene started to take off, and it was becoming like a professional sport. But unfortunately, it
You're an
grew so
athlete.
fast.
You're a fit guy. I'm a that's not a sport
Well,
that
yeah, I mean,
you can do,
paddling is
without practicing.
yeah, no, it's an amazing workout. That's why one of the reasons why I love it. But the sport grew so fast, and then it really like went down really fast too. But so I caught it at like the perfect time. Actually, it evolved. Water sports more involved into foiling, which is really where I spend a lot of my time now. So I do a couple disciplines in foiling. If anyone looks at my Instagram account, they'll quickly see. But like I do wing foiling. I have an electric hydrofoil, which is like the most fun you can ever have on the water. So I'm all about just having fun. I think overall, just my secret sauce in this whole company is that FLOHOM is a lifestyle. It's not a business. And so like there is no failure. Like this is how I want to personally live, and I'm just building the business to allow me to do it personally. And so there's just so many cool things, so much opportunity that we'll be able to do. But it all comes back to shifting society to have more of a like an on water like living lifestyle experience, so that all the water sports, the flow home, and whatever boat rentals or whatever else we can create to create this more like water centric way of life.
Yeah, and I love that, and I love yeah, Brian, we were talking about earlier that we definitely have some parallels, in, our backgrounds and our entrepreneurial journey. For me, the boat rental business, that was definitely my MBA. I mean, I'd worked in companies, in startups, but largely with, like, doing my role, I played a role in the company, but even if it was, maybe the role was, wearing multiple hats, there were different team members where the boats were like, I'm responsible for everything. Like start of, the website to how do we get customers in the door to talking to customers on the phone to figuring out how to take payment from the customers to figuring out insurance to, making sure that we had repeat customers and we actually got the boats out, like all the logistics. It was everything. And like I feel like once you're able to do that, then it's like, well, I can do anything, like, and I feel like boat rentals and paddleboard rentals. I mean, it's a pretty logistically intensive business. So yeah, tell me, start with the paddle boards. Like walk me through kind of the logistics, the operations you had there, and then how you translated that into, I want to get into the inner workings of what you're doing now. But like, I would love to see, how your mindset and how going from business A paddle boards then, gave you insights that you then utilized to the new endeavor.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's pretty similar because from the paddle when I started paddleboarding and started flow home, because in paddleboarding business capital sup, it was just when I'm sure you're familiar with it. Anyone in the water sports kind of rental world, but Fair Harbor, the software system, they had just started and basically was like a lifesaver as far as the business because we were working off spreadsheets, and then when they came about, like we transitioned everything
There's
online,
like
and like
Fair
our
Harbor,
business.
there's Peak Pro.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of them, but, like, that was, like, a huge difference in the business, just from a time saver and getting, and creating the operations about, from getting someone to book to showing up. So that was one big part, but really the other bigger part, more important part, and also relates to flow home, is social media. Like Instagram, Facebook was out there, and it was really they had just started ads. And I just immediately was like, our businesses are so visual, like you have to visually see what it is to capture that person to come experience themselves. And so I wasn't even like a photographer or videographer. I just was like, these are tools I need to learn as soon as, as fast as possible, because I'm going to be able to leverage that content and push it through social to get people to come and experience Capital Sup. And so I started creating all the content. I started learning how to use ads, and that both of content and leveraging social media ads was huge early on, like getting people exposed to the business, and still today. And with Flow Home, I'm a huge believer in social media and from a marketing standpoint, and it's been a huge success both in my former company Capital Sup and also today with Flow Home.
Okay, so you capital us up. You really gave you that. that groundwork. And I know you touched on this earlier, the financing for boats, which I want to get into. But correct me, I mean, at least my interpretation of this is it was kind of the low risk business, so to speak. A stand up paddleboard is what, if you're getting a nice one, maybe $1,000, and that's like a very, I don't know the ones you were buying, but I buy like for my properties like the ones that you get from like Sam's Club, Costco, that are pretty much they're not, trying to think of the material, but yeah, they definitely break. We definitely have to replace them, but it's all par for course. But then with that, you're like, all right, now I'm comfortable. I'm gonna go knock on this. I'm gonna go knock on this houseboat, which I think is hilarious. Would you roll up on a paddleboard and then walk onto the houseboat?
I
Hey,
did.
no, everyone's cool. People are friendly on the water. You drive past someone on a boat, you wave, they wave back. You drive past them in a car, you wave. They, at least in New York City, they're definitely not that friendly. So, yeah, tell me, what is an investment in a houseboat? Like, what does that look like? How much do these things cost? What is the financing for them? Is it possible? Is it not possible?
Yeah, so from a cost standpoint, I can tell you what our models run for. So we have four models that we're building, from like a 30 by 14 suite all the way up to what we call our Celux models, which are one bedroom, two bedroom. They're 53 by 16. Now, when I talk about pricing, because we're renting these out, we're beginning the process of people buying flow homes and putting them back into our rental business. So the price I'm talking about, a ready to rent price, which includes the cost of flow home, but also furnishing it, shipping and launch, and all of that. So from a range, our ranges are anywhere from 215,000 to 475,000 for the big ones.
Oh, wow. But just to unpack this model, how many of them are there currently, and do you own all of them, or have you been partnering with, private money, so to speak, for each one?
Yeah, so I kind of just jumped ahead on where we're actually at with the ranges. So as of today, we own all the flow homes ourselves. I would love maybe one day I'll break down the actual true costs of them, but I don't want to give up that information yet. But yeah, so we own all of them today, and that was really our initial uh, plan, was to build and own as many of these as we can. But due to the success of the business and just the amazing experience we've created for people, I just started getting so many inquiries from people who are like, "How do I own one of these? Like, this is amazing." And I was like,
Yeah,
"All
how do
right,
I own
well."
one of these? I wanna know.
So yeah, so I was like, "All right, well," I was, talking to the team. I was like, "Well, let's like create a sales form and just put it out there, and just see what the interest is." And I mean, as of today, we launched it in January. We have over 500 inquiries. We vetted, at least over 100 of them, of like qualified buyers. There's a lot to meet the demand. Like we're not there yet. It's still part of the learning process, and we're moving quick. But there are limitations. I mean, and that's the benefit to the business. There's really I mean, there's a lot of limitations, but there's two significant barriers to entry that are now to our benefit because we've broken through them. Is one is houseboats historically have a very negative connotation in the marina industry because aesthetically they didn't look very good. They didn't fit in the marinas, and the people that were living on them weren't typically the types of people marinas wanted. And so there's that part that like people are like, they don't want houseboats in marinas. And then, there's the short term rental side, which has its own polarization. So when you combine the two, it's a recipe for disaster if you don't do it the right way. But I always say there's always the right way and a wrong way to do something. We've chosen the right way, and we're very intentional about everything we do to make sure we don't disrupt the community of the marinas that we're in. So now that we've done that, uh, that is a significant barrier to entry that we've proven that we can get into the not only a marina but the top marinas. So that's one part. The another part is uh, production scale, manufacturing. There isn't a manufacturer in the United States that can build these at scale, which is why we became a builder, really more out of necessity than interest or want. Like if there was a builder out there that was be able to produce the amount that we needed, like we probably wouldn't even had really gotten into the building part. But now that we're doing it, we realize how important it is. It's the key to the whole business. And so yeah, we're building now, and then and the other one is financing. So again, this is like a new asset. We're not technic. So house these are registered houseboats, but we're not really moving them. I mean, we move them in certain situations if we have to, but they mainly stay docked, at least for the guest experience. So financing is limited because of our success so far. We've made some pretty awesome banking relationships that we now are actually at the final stages of unlocking a financing program that's good enough to get started. It obviously will be better over time with more opportunity, but at least it's good enough to where I can confidently be like, hey, like you can apply to get financing, and it's a good deal.
And then these people who are buying, are they buying to rent them out again? Or you said you're building because nobody else is building, created the product or is building the product that you guys need? Or are people just buying for their own personal use and enjoyment?
So pretty much most of the people that are considering buying a flow home right now will be putting them back into our rental fleet
Got it.
for us to full property management. I mean, again, we didn't really want to get into property management. Like, we're not building a property management company, but it all came back to, wow, it's really interesting if our goal is to continue building our own company owned fleet, and we have people that want to buy flow homes. It's like, all right, well, the capital that the margin that we make off of building the flow homes for our customers, we can recycle that to accelerate our own fleet. And also from a high level, thinking long term, it's like, all right, well, if we find the right mix, then that means we may not have to raise as much money as we initially thought, and or get as much debt that we thought we would need. So there is a lot of benefit to
Economies of
having
scale.
the retail side of the business. And so now we're just still, in the journey of just figuring out what the right mix is. The other thing too, with people wanting to live on it full time, we do have people interested in that, and that the issues in the past there was like, all right, well, where are you going to put them? Because most marinas don't want these kind of this quote unquote live aboard, but we've actually, due to our just presence and our brand, and have proven like, hey, we're building a great business, is that some of our marina partners are now approving us to be able to allow people to buy flow homes and then live in their marinas full time. So that's another a kind of like big accomplishment recently, that we're able to now be able to place people that want to live full time in our flow homes in marinas.
Yeah, I love how, and I love right now how I can see your wheels are turning. Like you are very much in the midst of building. And I do also when I think about businesses that are successful that like haven't been done before. You look at, I'll give like, Facebook, for example. Facebook was successful because, everyone, and why was Facebook like a startup came out of nowhere? Why were they successful? Well, it's because everybody believed that that just wasn't something, oh, only college kids are going to do this. Like, why would an adult, put all their photos online? Like, no adult's ever going to do that. That's a thing for kids. Oh, wait, now adults are doing it. Okay, well, like there was always, it was a preconception that this wasn't possible for some reason. For you, I think you nailed on like, yeah, that nobody thought this was possible because people just have that preconception that I mean, I even think of it when I'm thinking of a houseboat, someone who like lives on a houseboat full times. Well, A, I'm a little envious because I personally love the water. But B, I do have like an image. I think of, I don't want to display that image, but yeah, definitely, maybe a hybrid between Aquaman and someone I might see walking around the streets of New York today. Uh, but I love how you've kind of been alleviating this concern that marinas have, and you're able to put proof to the pudding and create a product that is like, and then you're creating the product. You said and there's no other builders, but also now you are displaying the product through social media marketing, through video. I mean, I have your website pulled up. It's beautiful, drone shots. You are creating this new conception, and then you're using that to build a new type of business. And then obviously you're figuring out how to build it each day. Like you don't have, I love how you don't have, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing, but this is something we've seen. We put out a form, 500 people filled out the form. All right, we think we have something here. So I love that. Kudos for that. Now, back to questions I have. How do people go to the bathroom?
Yeah, so how it works in a marina is, and I'll kind of just talk about all the utilities, but part of the like, we pay a monthly, as you know, we pay a monthly slip rent to occupy that space. Pretty much all marinas, at least all the marinas we're in, that also includes permanent water, so potable water. We have water lines hook up. Includes electric, so we have electric from each slip, and then we have we went luxury. We have the most luxury kind of marine toilets that are out there. I mean, they're as close as like a normal toilet that you would have in your home on land, home on land. And we have black water tanks on the boats that hold the sewage, and then the marinas have their own pump out systems. And so, every other day, or whatever occurrence that we need, is that the part of the amenity that we get for paying that slip is that the marina staff will pump out our boats. And so it's a pretty seamless operation. The guest never knows. It's super clean. And but yeah, it using the restroom on a flow home is the same experience as on your home on land.
So actually, that's very similar to my Airstream. So I have an Airstream camper that I have parked actually in my parents' backyard in North Carolina. I did it as a test, frankly, and it's still a test. I want to at some point build landscape, resorts, and I actually thought the model. I'm going to parallel it to the model you're talking about, but I was like, damn, it'd be really cool if you like bought or built kind of what's akin to an RV park, and then essentially you outfitted it with electrical, septic, plug hookups, all the utilities that you just described, and then you'd have a couple options of like, oh, you could either buy and put like an Airstream here, or you can buy and put I don't know, four different options of quote unquote like recreational vehicles. And then, yeah, we would also potentially manage it on the back end, or they could obviously manage it themselves. And we would just charge for, that monthly slip, so to speak, or I guess in an RV park, it's called a pad, I believe.
Yeah.
So that was I mean, I have a lot of ideas, but that was kind of one of the ideas. Maybe at some point we'll roll with it. But it seems like that's kind of similar-ish to the model that you're thinking about. Obviously, you're partnering with the marinas, but essentially, like you're creating the infrastructure and the logistics. You're making it like plug and play, and then you're also managing social media marketing on the back end.
Yeah, and we're actually taking it one giant step forward from that as well. So to be truly vertically integrated, we also want to own the marinas themselves, and we actually just acquired our first marina a few weeks ago in Baltimore, because it's important for a lot of reasons. One is defensibility. We own the real estate; we can make our own rules, so it mitigates the risk there. But more importantly, I've been inspired by the unique stay operators that are building such, cool concepts all over the world. And I know that what we're doing is unique in itself, but what we ultimately want to do is transform marinas into futuristic on-water resorts where we combine the flow home model with the upland unique stay model, whatever, whether it's mirror cabin or whatever we want to build upland, but also having a food and beverage component. There's a whole nother side of the on water space that we are just diving into, which is just building floating commercial structures. So like floating special event centers, floating saunas. Um, so we want to build these types of commercial structures in the marina so that we can build resorts where we can have weddings, corporate offsites, where we're booking year round just for those types of events and things like that. Where our flow homes are going to be booked year round just from that, without even really having to do the standard short term rental. And so that ultimately is our vision. We just got our first marina in Baltimore, and we're constantly looking, and we'll, we hope to have a portfolio of them over time. But that really is like the true vision and vertical integration of what we're building.
I love that. I mean, 80% of the world is water, and we talk about the housing crisis. Some people blame short-term rentals for that, which personally I find totally bogus. And in a city that completely banned short-term rentals and still had rent go up 4%, year over year, and hotels charging all-time highs. But I saw or I read when I reached out to you, and I'm curious, what are the freaking regulations on a floating hotel?
Yeah, depending on how you look at it, you could consider it like a very challenging barrier to entry, or you
How do you
can look
define it?
at it
What do you even
as an
call it?
opportunity. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because each jurisdiction in regulations, two things. There's regulations on houseboats, and there's also regulations on the short-term rentals. On the houseboats, it's still gray, but it's kind of more defined. Although our first flow home started in Annapolis, but and again, let me take a step back. When I was talking at the beginning, I was like, "There's a houseboat renting on Airbnb and had been for years." But of course, when we show up, uh, you know, my partner has a one of my business partner has a marina in Annapolis, and so we docked it there. And the marina right next to him is like a very historic sailing marina. And the second we docked it there, they just started complaining, and then the city got involved. And in Annapolis, there's very antiquated, like very gray rules of what they call a house barge. That's a whole story to itself. It'll take a while to explain. But anyway, we went with the city kind of came after us, and we ended up moving the Flow Home One to Baltimore, which that right there is one of the biggest advantages we have as a company is
You can
being
move 'em.
mobile. We can move them.
Yeah.
So if we get in situations like that again, which I'm sure we will at some point, like we can move them, or we can move them just because maybe it's not performing as well as we thought. We've moved to another marina. Like we've already done all of that, and it's amazing that that we're able to do that. Which the more I think about, the more the benefits of this business model.
C
But
can you take it to Florida in the winter?
yeah. So in that scenario, what we would probably do is take the flow home out of the water and break it down, and so that we can flatbed it to Florida. I don't think realistically we'd probably do that in short term, maybe in the long term, but like we can. We're in the
Are you
Chesapeake Bay.
building them to be compartmentalized?
Yeah, hmm we are. So that's the houseboat. But then on the short term rental side, uh, none of the short term rental rules were written to consider boats in commercially zoned properties, and
I wouldn't have
so
thought to. If I'm
yeah,
writing the rules,
exactly.
that's the last thing I'm thinking about.
So, you know, we what we've had to do was, I mean, our legal bill is a little higher than what we initially thought it would be, but what we had to do is like we had to go to the cities and educate them on what we were doing. Be like, hey, look, like the short term rental laws like don't apply to our business. We're a net positive for the city. We're a 101. Like this doesn't exist anywhere else from building a brand behind this. Like you should want us in your city. And they agree. This city of Baltimore, for example, agreed, and so they licensed us as a hotel. So we pay the hotel tax. There is no limit to the amount of flow homes that we can place in Baltimore City, and more importantly, we proved precedent that were able to achieve that. That now we're able to take that playbook to any jurisdiction that we're in and be like, here's what we did in Baltimore. And so in Baltimore, we're a hotel. We also have a flow home at National Harbor, which we're just like completely exempt from being licensed as a short-term rental. However, we still pay the appropriate taxes. So it really just depends on the jurisdiction, and it really just comes down to now that we have a brand and a company that people can look at. It's a much easier conversation with them than before when we didn't really have anything, and they're like, well, what is this? Like, what are you guys doing now? It's now the momentum has shifted, and it's much easier to have those conversations.
And you talked about being in the Chesapeake Bay, but that covers a variety of different cities, right? You have, like you said, National Harbor, that's towards DC, Baltimore, obviously, Annapolis. Also, does it go all the way up to Delaware? But yeah, what are you like? What areas? Like, let's say you had to take a boat out of Baltimore today. Like, you have what other areas could you just float it on over to?
Yeah, I mean the Chesapeake Bay is amazing. I will say, just kind of a sidebar on my paddling and my passion is, I became the second person ever to paddle the entire length of the Chesapeake Bay. During COVID, I did it in 6 days. I went from Havre de Grace, which is at the very north, all the way to Virginia Beach. It was about 240 miles, but
I'm gonna call it
it was
Brian's Bay for now on.
one of the inspirations for doing that is that in the Chesapeake Bay, historically, is has been a thriving area, and there's a lot of these like bay towns that kind of just went dead for a while, but now with the internet and technology and just new industries that a lot of these bay towns are coming back to life. And so I wanted to just experience them for myself, or at least just paddle by them, just to get a sense of what the community was like. Because what's cool about Flow Home is that we can create experiences and stories around waterfront communities, and the Chesapeake Bay is an amazing place to do that. And so we have a vision in the next couple of years of creating the Chesapeake Bay flow home experience, where we have flow homes in all of the waterfront communities, from Baltimore to DC to Annapolis to the smaller places like Rock Hall, Crisfield. And so being able to, people both in the state and also traveling to Maryland and the surrounding Chesapeake Bay region, are able to see all these cool bay towns and cities while staying in a flow home.
And I personally have the Baltimore area connection. My sister lives in Severna Park, which is right outside Annapolis. I was watching the one of your guys' videos, and I saw the building, the Exelon building, where I interned at with my brother-in-law during college. And I'm just thinking, this is making Baltimore look a lot cooler than I remember Baltimore being when I was there.
Well, Baltimore is one of the most polarizing cities,
You got west and east.
rightfully.
Yeah.
Rightfully polarizing, rightfully so, because I mean, crime is a serious issue. I mean, it's usually one of the top like crime cities. No one's denying that. It definitely has its issues. However, it also has one of the most beautiful and diverse waterfronts for an urban city in the United States. Period. Like, I'll go debate anyone that, and that's where we're focused on, is bringing the connection and activity to the waterfront. And we have been crushing it in Baltimore, and I love it because what we've proven is, like, really, if we can do what we're doing in a place like Baltimore, this really can work anywhere. But even better for us is, like, we didn't really think of this at the beginning, but like, we're now continuing to target urban areas where there's just lots of people. Because another interesting aspect about our business is that typically unique stays or Airbnbs or short-term rentals, like, you're mostly relying on people traveling in and out of a certain place. Well, for us, I mean, the majority of our bookings are from people that live in the area. They're booking flow homes to celebrate special occasions, or to do a staycation or a quick getaway. I mean, we just created a whole nother, it's still small, but a whole nother kind of business on its own, is these experiences. So romance packages, birthday packages, private chefs, masseuses, yoga teachers, like, we've now baked in all these additional services that we're creating. We get spiffs on, of connecting our guests to these providers or setting up a romance package. And so, on our bigger boats, they go for $500-600 a night. Well, in a lot of cases, they're actually paying 700 to 800 if they have all these add-ons. And so there's just so many crazy things that are happening that are really like making us like, wow, like, this is really interesting that we didn't really expect. And like, how do we, monetize this?
Yeah, and I think being on the water, and I definitely saw this during COVID, and I felt it personally. The water is just, it's healing.
To me, it's everything. It's my place to think. It's my place to meditate. It's my place to go be free. It's my place, to be, alone in my thought. I mean, it's my purpose in life. And it turns out, it's a lot of people think the same way. And we're building a really big company based on the water. And that's actually funny. I met someone recently. He told me about this book that I wasn't aware of, but it's called Blue Mind, and it kind of dives more into the scientific aspects of why people are drawn to the water. So I immediately read it and immediately put it on every single one of the flow homes, right on the coffee table, right when they walk in. So it's like, while they're sitting there contemplating life and their amazing experiences, they're reading about the scientific benefits, almost as a sales pitch, because I have my sign on the table next, where they can just QR code to the sales form to then start to become a flow homeowner.
And that right there is why Brian and FLOHOM will be successful,
Yeah.
because it's not, oh, what's the exact numbers on, oh, we can only, let's buy X piece of furniture because it's gonna. No, it's the little things in hospitality. it is the little things. And then in business as a whole, you need to have a mission. Like, Brian, at this point, I'm assuming you built out a team. It's not only you. I know there was you and two other partners at the beginning, but tell us, yeah, what's the current operation like? How many of there? And yeah, I'm curious. Like, does everybody share this same love and passion for just doing things on the water?
Well, honestly, I'm on a level above anyone else, which is a good thing because I'm the leader of the
Well,
company.
totally. You're a
But
leader. Totally.
but I have two business partners. One of them is all focused on the production side of the business, so he's solely focused over there. We have a production team, mostly using contractors, and he's been building for 30 plus years. So I mean, he's got a amazing network of people. My other partner is think of him more as like the chairman of the board. Like I mean, this guy built one of the largest parking companies in the U.S. 13,000 employees, 350 million annualized revenue, like just a monster. And he's been investing in other companies, and he's like the person that you go to when you have questions or really how to structure the company or tap into his network of fundraising. So it's us three, but then on like the day to day is I basically manage or own all aspects of the business except actually building currently. We're still a scrappy startup, but it's focused solely on the operational side is obviously as an entrepreneur startup co-founder, like you have to learn how to build what you're creating to then be able to pass it on to someone else. And so I manage the whole rental side of the business, and been very fortunate to find really dependable cleaners who are super high quality. But more importantly, and I did this strategic at the beginning, I was like, I wanted to share them the vision of Flow Home because I wanted them to buy in because I wanted them to buy in first because right after that, I was going to ask them to do more than what they typically do when they clean because there's just more involvement with being a boat in a marina and also a luxury experience. So, I mean, as you know, cleaning is like the most underappreciated, but like most important part of a short term rental because it's the first thing people see when they walk in is like how clean the place is. And so, I demand excellence. And so far, they've provided excellence for me. We have, 5-star rating reviews, and a lot of them are like, man, this place is like simply immaculate. And that's because of them and the processes that I helped create with them. We have a maintenance team, we have a concierge team that will come in and decorate the flow homes. And, on the marketing side, I followed the same playbook as Isaac French, some of the others, utilizing social media, Instagram. So I got
Which
Nate over at
quick plug for Isaac's episode. He's been on the pod, so
Yep,
definitely check that one out. Because yeah, I see the huge parallel with the little things. He did cookies, cookies from a
yep.
local bakery. That was kind of his personal touch. So I see that. But yeah,
I was just
sorry,
go-
keep going there.
I was just gonna say on the marketing side, he used Content House to really kind of boost his Instagram and his social, and I hit contacted Nate last fall and was like, "Hey man, what do you think?" Like, because my background actually too is I don't consider myself a content creator because I don't really care about content creating content for myself, but I love photography, I love videography, and also as I was building Flow Home, I taught myself how to shoot real estate photography and videography, and was shooting both residential and commercial as a way to make money while building Flow Home. And so all the listing photos I shoot and edit myself. Um, but on the video side, Nate and his team, actually Nate's team was just here this week shooting all the Flow Homes, and so I mean them right there is one of the most important aspects of the business because we're following the same playbook as Instagram. Social media is the marketplace. We have in the last less than 2 months, we went from 30,000 to 70,000 followers on Instagram. We've had a couple like pretty like viral videos, and that's correlating directly to bookings. Over 70% of our bookings are direct through our website. Airbnb is like 18-20%, and then VRBO, Google's the rest. And so, you know, we don't necessarily have a lot of full-time people yet. We're still a very scrappy startup. A lot of the capital that we've raised goes directly into the assets themselves. But, um, as an entrepreneur, like one of my best skill sets is the ability to learn. And so, right now I'm like overwhelmed and swamped, but I love it. I love the sense of urgency that every day, I put on myself. But I am looking forward to the next step of bringing people on to kind of delegate some of these day to day tasks, so I can continue working on the business, not just in.
Yeah, my fiance, I've been using her terminology, but building the machine, so to
That's
speak.
right.
Like every
I
day,
say that all the time.
it's great. I heard it from her first, but I guess it's a popular saying. But as an entrepreneur, that's what you got to do every day. Is and like you said, build the machine, and you want to build to the point where the manual tedious, the tasks, you can remove yourself from tasks and be able to focus on growth opportunities, which it seems like that's kind of what you're working on, or where your wheels are turning. So I want to go all the way back first because I have a question on this and I put it in my notes and I didn't touch on it. But yeah, tell me what's it like to, finally after I don't know however old you were, meet your birth parents, and if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that. But yeah, how I'm curious. Obviously, you're learning about your entrepreneurial outlook, but I'm sure was that something that kind of made you the guy you are?
100%. Growing up, I never really took school that seriously. Just did enough to kind of get by. Um, but I always knew like I had something in me. School just wasn't for me. And then when I met my birth families, I mean, that was just a life changing experience. On my birth mom's side, her family is very is a historic political family in the state of Maryland that I had no idea about until after I met them. So I kind of walked into this like family that was like, my grandfather is like one of the most historic politicians in the state of Maryland, and actually, uh, because of him, not in a bad way, but because of who he is like one of the reasons why I was adopted. Like my birth mom had to give me up for adoption. Um, but meeting their families and just understanding how their family dynamic is, it really kind of inspired me in a way, because it's interesting because every family has their own dynamics, and in this specific family, like the grandparents really kind of like were the hierarchy, and really facilitated their love and their network in helping people find the right things that they want to do in life, which is totally cool. And I experienced that myself, but as a just who I am personally, it just wasn't what I wanted or needed, and I just felt like, I've always been a super independent person, which is how I've ended up where I am today. And so just that independence and that kind of curiosity to just really just follow my passions in life, no matter where they take me, is what has created Capital Sup, my nonprofit, and then really FlowHome. You just really, for me, it's like finding purpose in life and just putting all my eggs in the basket and just going for it. Because the great thing in my situation is I have my parents that raised me are amazing. And always I always knew I had like quote unquote like a safety net. Like if I truly failed, like they're going to be there to help pick me back up so I can go try again. So like my risk tolerance is like extremely high, which you need to do something like this, because like the success rate is very small. And I just basically was like, this is there's no failure is not an option. It's like this is the only way that I want to live my life. And because of my experiences meeting my birth families and just really having such an amazing support system, is really that just gave me the confidence and belief that I can like actually build something like this.
Got it. So meeting them. So I mean, I'm curious. Did learning that you came from, you know, a significant family who had, done, it sounds like they've done some things, polarizing things perhaps, but maybe just they're significant, like people who had made a difference, kind of make you be like, you know what, I'm actually, I'm born to do some crazy shit. Like, let's make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's honestly, I mean, as you know, as any entrepreneur, just like when you create something and you like get to feel the success of it, it's an addicting feeling. Knowing that you were part of creating that. Um, so yeah, I mean, to me, it's like that's the only way that I could ever foresee myself, you know, living moving forward, is doing things that I'm doing right now, because it all comes down to, this is what I love to do. Even when the days are long and bad and rough, it's just like still like, man, this is so amazing because like just the other day, like I had a super like long rough day, but then I was just sitting on the rooftop of one of my flow homes, 80 degrees, sun's out, and I'm literally just laying on the sofa, just like staring up at the sky, and I was like, this is amazing.
This is pretty cool. So yeah, I want tell me about that feeling, that first booking. So when exactly did you get the first one up? What was that first booking? What that look feel like? And then when did you just know, like, all right, we're on to something here. Let's pour some fuel on this fire.
Yeah, so the funny the first booking was my partner's friend of a friend whose daughter was getting married, and so her fiance or groom, we let them stay on the boat. It's like him and his brother, and I stupidly bought like a bottle of whiskey for him just as like a celebratory. And of course, they stayed up late night, and they were being loud, and the neighbors, were like complaining. I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I didn't want to do. But they still had a great time. But the moment that I knew we had something was 5 days later when we had done 25,000 in bookings, and I was like, "Holy crap!" It seems like people, and all of those bookings were direct through our website, which was still at that time still being built, still had a lot of work to do, and
Did they
I
come
was like,
through
"Oh wow."
Instagram or how did they find you?
Yeah, Instagram and just locally, like people were knew what I was doing and were kind of just waiting to see how it was going to turn out. But quickly that 25 grand was more than cut in half because then the city of Annapolis was like, hey, like you have to cease operations, so we had to like refund a bunch of people. I was able to to get people to book when we moved it back to Baltimore. But so it was like this super high and then like super low. And then I was like, oh, we can move to Baltimore. And I was like, all right, I don't know. I hadn't really like pro forma Baltimore, so I didn't know how I was going to do. And then, I mean, it was the best decision we ever made. I mean, it's just been full bore since we've been there. But I would say so that moment, but also too, uh, this winter, the biggest unknown on this business was like, how would these perform during the winter? I mean, because most people just assume we would shut down, and I was like, no, we're going year round. And we had a great December. January was decent. I mean, January is always the slowest month around here for everything. But then February we crushed it because we realized February is the month of romance and flow homes were made for love. So like
I love
we
that.
were booked
Made
out
for
all
love.
month. We were booked out all month, and there it's pretty the winters are pretty mild here, but there was one week where it did get into the teens. All of our flow homes were booked. And I had, we had some maintenance issues, not necessarily on the flow homes, but like being that cold, obviously, like the water's freezing. So we had heated water lines from the water spigots to the boat. But what would happen is that the actual pipe that was coming out of the ground froze, and so I had to get some heated wire to unfreeze it. But like I went to the flow homes and talked to the people, and like they were absolutely having a blast in like 15-degree weather in the middle of the winter on a boat in Baltimore, and I was
You
like,
do you, these
all right.
boats have central HVAC, central heating as well? Like, is it mini splits or
Yeah,
I'm so like the logistics utilities are geek me out.
so we use mini split units, Senville mini split. We also spray foam all over the boat, so it insulates the AC and heat really well. And but yeah, I mean, we had zero issues with heat this winter. But looking back and seeing how we performed during the winter really not just opened my eyes, but especially my partners when they're like, "Oh wow, like we really do have something here." So, and then just this year is really kind of our first full booking year where we, people knew about us. We have a social presence, and I mean, we've been since March, hovering around 85 to 90% occupancy, like
Wow.
getting rates that were pretty far above what we had originally pro forma.
So that's 300 days a year, getting booked. If you're let's just throw out January. Conservative here. You're probably getting booked over 300 days a year per flow home.
Yep.
And I'm guessing what 600 ADR on average? Maybe I don't.
No, we had different models. So our higher end models are right now in the 500-600 range, but I would say, like, if you annualize that out, they'll probably be in, like, the high 4s, and then
Mhm.
our smaller boats, like, our smaller ones are in the high 2s, mid 3s, so even even out, like, a whole fleet, we're probably in, like, the high 3s, low 4s, but these are, I mean, these are 1 bedroom, most of these are 1 bedroom units. We do have a 2 bedroom, so
Got it. So that's
yeah.
higher end units, 150K a year, revenue, low quote unquote lower end units, 90K a year. Um,
Yep, give or take.
Pretty solid. I mean, if I'm napkin mathing it, that 100K of revenue for me, like a 500K purchase price house, that's a really good investment. 150K, that napkin math it, multiply, and I'm doing the 20% revenue to rent ratio, but that supports a three quarter of a million purchase. And I'm assuming, I don't go into the cost structure, but you're building these things. You're not spending three-quarters of $1 million to build one of these things. So for
A
you,
third of that.
yeah, the math is
Less
mathing.
than that. Yeah.
The math is math. And well, dude, this is so interesting. One thing, so it seems like for you, moving forward, the biggest thing, you've got the construction down. Y'all are good at that. Obviously, I'm sure, as if you have to build 100 of them at a time versus building a couple of them at a time, that's, you know, obviously a totally different thing. But let's just assume, you guys will figure that out. Is really the thing, just kind of the partnership with marinas is really the biggest thing for you guys in your growth.
Yeah, placement. Yeah, it's the 3 Ps. It's placement, production, and people. We have the people. It's really the placement and production. In the marina industry, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but in the marina industry, like, most other industries, there's been consolidation at the top. Private equity, permanent capitals come in, creating ownership groups, acquired, pretty much all the premier marinas, and these are financially savvy people that, they're interested in making money. It's a pretty easy pitch to a marina in our situation is like, hey, look, like, we're running a business out of this slip. Like, we want to pay a premium to operate out of here. And so when you add a couple of flow homes over putting boats and slips, the financial dynamic of a marina really starts to change. And so marinas are now really starting to warm up to putting flow homes in there now that we've proven we can run a good business. And but placement's a big one, and not just, because we want to be in the best marinas, and so, just finding what those marinas are, and creating those relationships. We're fortunate to have a relationship um, with the largest third party management company, marina management company in the United States, and so a lot of the marinas that we're in today are through them, and so we look forward to continuing that partnership. And then on the production side, I mean, we technically, like you said, we haven't figured out as far as, like, we know how to build them. We still have a long way to go on scaling production. I mean, that really um, is where a lot of our attention is being spent right now. And like you just said earlier about, you got to build the machine. Is like I keep telling my team, it's like, we know how to build the boats, but we need to build the machine that builds the boat. All the processes, the operations, the systems to be able to do that. And so that really is a key focus for us over the next year is scaling production so that we can meet the demand. Um, because the demand is there. We just, at this point, we can't build them fast enough. But we're getting there. We're learning quick. From a capital standpoint, we raised a 2.5. Well, we have been raising 2.5 million seed round. We have 2.1 raised today. Now that we've had all this early success, we're closing in that last 300 to 400 here. Hopefully in the next 45, 60 days, and then we have a financing partner, a local bank that has bought into what we're doing. So we have all the things in place now, that now it's just about how fast can we go, but maintain the quality of what we've created. And that to me is super important, is maintaining the highest quality that we can, because I don't want to just create this hyper scaled company, but we lose the quality of the experience, because that to me is the most important, is creating the guest experience. And so that will be the the next challenge is how to do both scale and maintain the experience.
Absolutely. And yeah, we should I have well, given my boat background and, done a good bit of networking with I mean, I'm sure have a lot of your leads came through Fair Harbor, like your marina partners. Is that have they done some intros there, or I guess
No, I Fair Harbor is what we use for Capital Sup, but we haven't. But yeah, the marina. Actually, just a little backstory is one of my partners who I was telling you who started the parking company. Think of him as like an all-time legend, like NFL football coach. Where if you look at the coaching tree, there's like 10 other now CEOs that were underneath him, and so that basically is what he created. And one of him, who was his top lieutenants, then created this marina management company, who then created the largest management company, and then he is now helping us out and advising us, and so it's been really cool to kind of the tree of life of all these people have kind of come, started here and then have kind of gone their own way, and now like, oh, this is a really cool idea, and so like bringing the crew back, and it takes this FLOHOM is much bigger than me. It's definitely not about me. I'm just the leader and putting the pieces together. And we need a lot of smart people, and we're getting a lot of smart people to help build this vision that I have, and it's coming to fruition. And we still have a long way to go, but we've made significant strides so far.
beautiful. No, this sounds great. And after here, I'd love to, I'm happy to, share any connections I have. VQuip is like the booking software I use. So it's like an insure tech. It's actually probably the only company that cold called me that like I've ever actually signed on with. But essentially, it's a booking platform. It's kind of like Peak or Fair Harbor, but it's also with a heavy emphasis on insurance. But they've raised a good bit of money, founded by like a former NFL player. Um, I think that would be cool. And then my friend, I have a friend who is a private equity firm who buys marinas. So
Yep.
I guess I
I
can.
probably I might know the name of who they are.
Sure. Well, when we're off here, I'll we can touch on that. But yeah, this is awesome, man. I guess how can folks stay in tune with your journey and just see see how you do this thing?
Yeah, so I spend flohome.com is our website. Flohome underscore OFC is our Instagram account. So you can follow along on Flohome. I spend most of my personal time on Instagram as far as like posting stuff. I'm just more of a visual person. So it's what is my Instagram? It's underscore Brian Meyer. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I don't really post much because I don't really have time at this point. But I hopefully I'll have some more time to kind of start kind of sharing the insights. Isaac and Ben Wolf and them are always like, "Oh, you got to build in public." I was like, "I totally get that. I just don't have any time to do that right now." But there will be a time to do that, so I can kind of
And
share.
Ben Wolf has also been on the pod too. Gonna plug that episode as well. Onera.
Yeah. But yeah, flowhome.com is the website, and then you can kind of link to all our social accounts. And then if anyone ever, if anyone has any questions or wants to chat, I'm always down to have a conversation, share what we're doing. It's funny, Isaac just, I was grateful he wanted to do a little kind of a post and story on me, which he did on LinkedIn and Twitter, which blew up my inbox. So I got to meet a lot of new people from that, and
That's how we're
hopefully
here.
yeah,
I was like,
exactly right.
whoa,
And I
this is
hope,
so cool.
this will probably be another one of those things where people are going to tune in and be like, "Oh, I need to reach out to Brian." So I'm sure I'll get some more messages, and we look forward to having those conversations.
Yeah, well, you guys hearing this? Brian's inbox is open. I hit him up on LinkedIn, and apparently that was an effective means of getting in on here and hearing his story. Something I ask everybody: what is your biggest pro tip for succeeding in this game?
Woo. Biggest pro tip in the game of short-term rentals or
Yeah,
hospitality.
we can even go short term rentals, boats. There's a lot of we're covering a lot today. It's a big umbrella.
I think that for me, the number one priority in my business is the guest experience. Is as long as you create an amazing guest experience, I promise you everything else will work out.
Amen. I couldn't second that more. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, everybody stay tuned to the next episode of the Short Term Rental Pros podcast.